We place a lot of weight in our society and in our culture on the feedback that we receive from others. You go and you make a purchase, or you're working on a project, and you show that project around, you tell a few people about it, and without getting to know the project or getting to know what you're looking to accomplish with that project, they say, well, have you thought about doing this? Could you do this a little bit better? Is this something that you think is really going to work? And they're offering sort of the quote unquote constructive criticism. That's really easy to identify, especially if it's harsh. It's very easy to identify that. But the bottom line is that we still take it in, we still absorb it. Now, on the other side of the coin, we have the praise that comes with something. Wow, that's a great project that you're working on. Wow, I can't believe that you're putting in that much effort. Wow, that's such a great thing that you're working on, etc., etc. And we tend to lump the praise as good, and we tend to lump the criticism potentially as bad. I am saying, or I'm putting forth right now, that unless one condition is met, both the praise and the criticism are equally invalid. And here's what that thing is. If someone is offering you either praise or criticism, and it is unsolicited, and they have not first asked you what your goals are with what it is that you're doing, then they are both equally bad. Both the praise and the criticism are both a trap that you can fall into. Because if you follow their advice and they don't know what it is that you're looking to accomplish, praise and criticism are both equally dangerous. So what do? Well, if someone asks you, for instance, if they give you some unsolicited criticism, and they say, oh, well, do you really think that's going to work in that market? Well, rather than just accepting the criticism and stopping there, what I suggest you do is I suggest you say, well, would it help you if you knew what my goal was with this particular project? Now, if they ignore you, or if they just keep talking, then you can pretty much disregard what they're going to say, because they're not extending any empathy to you. They're not demonstrating any desire to get to know what it is that you're looking to accomplish with what it is that you're doing. Now, on the other hand, if they say, yeah, well, this is what I think you're doing, but what are your goals? And then you explain your goals to them. Well, now, if they change what it is that they had originally suggested, well, now you have a real valid thread to kind of explore further with them, because now they're actually trying to understand what it is that not only what your project is, what you're trying to accomplish with your project. Now, the praise can be even more dangerous, because we don't tend to question praise as much as we tend to question criticism. We just tend to accept the praise. However, I think that unsolicited praise from someone who doesn't know what your goals are is just as dangerous as the unsolicited criticism, because we tend to ignore it and we just tend to accept it in. You could be going down a completely wrong trail if you just accept that unsolicited praise from someone as well. So where am I going with this? Well, I'm going to give you an example from real life right now. So we just went out today, actually, and I went out and I bought a new car, a minivan. That's right, because we're having another kid pretty soon here. I needed to get a larger vehicle. And so the minivan was, in fact, what we got. Fantastic. Yes, I know. Now, I have a colleague who is... he's either the top, or he is way up there in terms of a top producing real estate agent in this metro area. He's the type of guy who is showing 7 and sometimes even 8-figure properties and closing those deals. And I showed him this car, right? This minivan. And most people would think, why are you showing him this car? He's not going to be interested in that. He's driving around people who are going to be closing on multi-million-dollar transactions. That's not something he would be interested in. Well, if you just knew him as a top producing real estate agent, that would probably be a good guess. The challenge is, though, that not only is he a top producing real estate agent, but he is a very religious person who is really focused on being humble with his material belongings. And so while he wouldn't get this car for his own personal use for driving clients around, guess what? It's something that he's interested for his wife for their church group to transport people back and forth. So if I had just made that assumption without first getting to know what it was that he was interested in accomplishing, then I wouldn't be doing him any service. Okay? And so why I'm bringing this up here is because when I'm looking at materials, I'm being asked to review materials. If I don't know what the goals are, and if I don't know what the objectives are, not even from a business standpoint, but just from talking to the founder or from talking to the business owner and saying, what do you want this to look like a year from now? What do you want your life to be like if you achieve all your goals with this business? If I don't know just that basic information, then I'm making suggestions and I'm making advice. I'm providing advice in the dark. And I'm also doing it from a very unempathic standpoint, because if I don't know what your goals and objectives are, I'm not going to be providing the best possible answer that I can to your questions. Okay. And in addition, one thing that I just want to point out right now that I'm seeing in common with the materials that I've seen so far is in 2005, I had a small emergency response startup. It was designed specifically for wildfire, but it was what was called all risk, all hazard, which means it could do a variety of things. I went and I showed it to the emergency manager of a municipality. I actually had gone to school with this guy way back and had met up with him at this event. And I showed him all of the products on the wall of the vehicle that it could produce and all of the various outputs that it had. And he just strolled around the vehicle and he just looked over at me and he said, "Well, Anthony, what does it do? Show me what it does." And I just looked at the stuff on the wall, but I couldn't provide a verbal answer to that question. He stumped me with a very simple question. And so when I look at these materials, I ask myself that question: what does it do? What do I get? And I don't know what the answer to that question is. Now, if I had more information and I knew what type of audience this was being presented to, and if I knew perhaps if they were being pre-sold on these materials and someone were, for instance, to be introducing this keynote and answering all these questions, then that might give me a little bit better frame of reference from which to evaluate these. But in isolation, looking at these, I don't know the answer to those questions. What does it do? And here are the three subsets of what I mean when I say what does it do. I'm looking for this level of clarity. Let's say I have a broken pipe in my house and I'm going to be having you over as a guest later on today. Well, I have a very specific problem. I have water on my floor. I have water coming into the house. Okay? I know that I have a problem. I know who I need to contact for that problem, the emergency plumber. And the third item that I know is I know what the desired outcome is when they have successfully completed what it is that they need to do. I'm going to have no leaks and I'm going to have a dry house that is hopefully as close to normal as it is when you come over as my guest. When I review these materials, I don't have that level of clarity. And I can say that without knowing any goals, because that's what I'm saying from my perspective. I don't know what those three things are. So I hope that this has been of some service to you. Perhaps not the answer that you were looking for, but once again, I need to be straightforward, and I need to be upfront with providing advice only from a position of service and only from a position of empathy. And if I can't provide that guidance, not knowing what those specific goals are, then I would rather address it than try and provide some generalities and platitudes that might steer someone in the wrong direction. Because I think that something that's even worse than staying still is going in the wrong direction because someone simply didn't want to push back. So that's that. Let me know if you have any other questions, and I hope you have a great day.